At 18, when most girls were dreaming of college, freedom and a life of their own making, she was given, still untouched, still innocent, to a man twice her age, a widowed rancher with 3 children and a reputation that made the small town whisper. No one expected love, least of all her, and what unfolded on that dusty stretch of land shocked everyone who thought they knew how the story would end. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, because this isn't just a story, it's a journey of heartbreak, resilience, betrayal, and redemption you won't forget. She had always been told that her life wasn't hers to live. Born in a small, conservative town where whispers carried faster than the wind, Amelia had grown up under the weight of her parents' rules, traditions, and expectations. By the time she was 18, she knew that her dreams of attending college, moving to the city, or even choosing whom to love would never be allowed. Her father, a stern man with calloused hands and a rigid sense of honor, had already decided her fate. The rancher on the outskirts of town, Jonathan Blackwood, had lost his wife in a tragic accident 3 years earlier, leaving him to raise 3 children alone while running one of the largest cattle operations in the county. He was known for his strength, his silence, and the shadows that clung to him like a second skin. He was respected, even feared, but no one truly knew him. When Amelia's father announced that she would be given to Jonathan, the town erupted in whispers. Some pitied her, some envied her, but all watched closely, hungry for scandal. She walked into that marriage terrified, still a virgin, her innocence wrapped around her like fragile glass. Jonathan was twice her age, his hands rough from years of work, his eyes carrying storms she couldn't understand. His 3 children, ranging from a defiant teenager to a clingy toddler, looked at her with suspicion, confusion, and a deep longing for the mother they had lost. The house she entered was not a home, but a battlefield of grief and silence. At first, Amelia tried to disappear into the background, doing chores quietly, keeping her head down and avoiding confrontation. Yet slowly the cracks began to show. Jonathan wasn't cruel, but he was distant. He kept his emotions locked away, and when he did speak, his words were sharp, practical, never tender. The children tested her daily. The eldest, Matthew, despised her, calling her an intruder, while the middle child, Clara, watched her with guarded eyes. Only little Samuel reached for her hand at night, as if sensing she was just as lost as they were. But beneath the silence of the ranch, strange things began to stir. Amelia noticed that certain letters arrived late at night, delivered by riders who never stayed. She heard hushed conversations between Jonathan and men she didn't recognize, conversations that stopped the moment she entered the room. She saw scars on his arms that didn't look like accidents from ranch work, and weapons locked away in a cabinet that seemed out of place in a home. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and Amelia realized she had been placed into a life that held secrets far darker than loneliness. She was not just a young bride struggling to find her place. She was stepping into the heart of a storm that would soon consume them all. And the first crack in her fragile world came one night when she found Jonathan bleeding on the porch, whispering a name she had never heard before, a name that would haunt her until the truth unraveled. Amelia froze at the sight of Jonathan slumped against the porch rail, blood dripping from a gash along his side, his breath ragged as he whispered a name she didn't recognize. Harlan. Panic surged through her, but before she could move, Matthew appeared, his face pale, his eyes darting from his wounded father to her trembling hands, as if blaming her for something she hadn't done. She helped drag Jonathan inside, tearing cloth into strips to press against the wound, her fingers slick with blood for the first time in her life. It wasn't just the injury that terrified her. It was the way Jonathan's eyes burned with secrets he couldn't share. That night, while the children slept fitfully, Amelia realized she wasn't just a stranger in this house. She was a witness to something hidden, something dangerous. And the man she'd been given to wasn't only a widowed rancher struggling with grief. He was part of a past that had left enemies still lurking in the shadows. And as the coyotes howled outside, she understood with a chill that her arrival here wasn't just fate. It might have been a trap, one she was never meant to escape. The morning after Jonathan's collapse, Amelia woke with the memory of his blood still sticky on her hands, and the echo of the name he had whispered, Harlan, haunting her thoughts. And though the town doctor stitched him back together and left with a glance that seemed to say more than his lips dared, the ranch did not slow. There were cattle to drive, fences to mend, children to feed, and a silence between husband and wife that grew heavier with each passing day. But within that silence, Amelia saw cracks, strangers loitering at the edges of the land, letters arriving with wax seals she did not recognize, the faint glimmer of rifles being cleaned when he thought she wasn't watching, and the constant hostility of Matthew, the eldest boy, whose grief for his dead mother hardened into resentment that Amelia could feel like a blade pressed to her throat, while Clara's wary eyes softened into trust, and Samuel clung to her skirts as if he knew instinctively that she, too, was a child lost in a storm she could not control. Yet one night, Matthew broke her composure when he hissed that she should ask Jonathan who Harlan was and why their mother really died. Words that pierced Amelia until she crept to the study and spied her husband hunched over a revolver and a scorched photograph of his late wife, whispering to the empty room that he had promised to keep them safe, even if it killed him. And though she backed away unseen, the discovery gnawed at her until another letter arrived, bearing only the chilling words, "They know she is here," which made her wonder with mounting terror if she meant her. Because already she felt watched by the footprints near the barn, the lanterns glowing in the distant hills, and Clara's night terrors of men in black hats outside her window, until finally Amelia, driven past endurance, confronted Jonathan in the barn and demanded to know the truth, only for him to tell her in a voice low and broken that she was part of it whether she liked it or not, and before she could press further, the thunder of hooves shook the night, shouts split the silence. Matthew rushed in crying that they had come, and torches flared on the horizon as Jonathan seized his rifle and sent his son to hide the children. And Amelia understood in that shattering instant that she had not been given merely as a wife to a lonely rancher, but as a pawn in a war rooted in secrets, enemies, and vows made to the dead. A war that now came crashing upon them with the crack of the first gunshot, tearing the darkness wide open. The gunfire tore through the night like thunder, and in the chaos Amelia clutched Samuel and Clara close, while Matthew fought to prove he was his father's son, standing at Jonathan's side as men descended upon the ranch. In the end, when dawn bled over the hills, the attackers lay scattered, their torches snuffed out, and Jonathan, bloodied but unbroken, revealed the truth at last. Harlan was his estranged brother, a man who had once shared in a violent past and now sought vengeance by tearing apart everything Jonathan loved. Amelia realized then that she had been brought into this family not only to care for the children, but to stand as the missing piece of strength Jonathan could no longer find alone. And though the town whispered of scandal and danger, the Blackwood Ranch stood unbowed, for out of terror and betrayal had grown an unshakable bond. Amelia was no longer the frightened girl given away. She was the woman who had survived fire and blood to become the heart of a broken family made whole again.